for day 4 of prayer points when selling a home, buying home the kingdom way, not the worldly way, things to expect. We're gonna hop right into it. It's 8:30. We are supposed to be here 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. So thank you guys for returning. Thank you guys for coming in. Um, as you go into this, just remember that you are to keep a good heart posture, to remain in the heart posture that you are supposed to be in as a believer. So that means that even during the process of you purchasing a home, or selling a home, if you run into problematic areas, you are going to want to make sure that you are still exemplifying our Heavenly Father, because you're supposed to put Him on every day, all day. And so while we do fall short, it is still something that you're going to want to make sure that you are considering throughout the process. All right, so we're going to dive in. And I actually think I'm going to go backwards to the front, and just touch on some of the key points. So for the last 4 days, we've been talking about home ownership, selling homes, purchasing homes, the kingdom way versus the worldly way. One of the things that stood out was the fact that, with affordability, a lot of people are going and getting pre-qualified and pre-approved with homes, based off of their gross. And you should never do that, because it's a recipe for disaster, guys. When you're doing that, that means that you are now, and I think I'm going to swap ways that I'm sitting. And so when you're doing that, what's happening is you are actually setting yourself up for failure, because you don't see that income. That is something that you never touch. So for example, if you have an income that has $100,000, but you only see 75 of that, you're going in with a negative deficit, and you don't ever want to do that. And so because you're going in with a negative deficit, you are now positioning yourself to be, at a deficit. With that deficit, that means that you're going to go into that deal, that business transaction, and now you're actually setting yourself up for failure. So anytime you're looking at your pre-qualification, anytime you're looking at your buyability, you want to utilize your net income versus your gross. And the world teaches you are supposed to use what your gross says, but if you're never seeing that money, why would you consider that a factor as to what you can afford? And so that's the cycle that has gotten so many homeowners into the debt trap that they are in now. And so with this debt trap that they're in now, a lot of them are going through foreclosures or unnecessary modifications. If they, had gone with the net proceeds of what their affordability was, could have been eliminated altogether. And so the affordability is the main thing. When you're pre-qualifying, there are several different types of loans that you guys can receive when you are actually looking to purchase your home. When you're looking to purchase your home, you should be looking at the type of loan as well. And so that's a prayer point. Like, you want to make sure that you're housing the right loan, because if you're going for an older home or a resale, you definitely want to have something in a budget to be able to do necessary repairs. If you have a home that has like some, it needs a little bit of TLC, you definitely want to have a budget for that, and not the budget that you're bringing to the table to actually purchase. All of these areas can actually be negotiated with the incentive process. This is why it's important for you to have the right agent. Your agent is going to be the person that represents you throughout the entirety of the phase of purchasing or selling. So they need to be clear on what it is that you know and what you need moving forward, and they need to be your advocate. That's what they're hired for. That's what you're giving them the realtor fee for. And so be clear on that. Be clear on the things that you want. Be clear on the things that they should be advocating for you in, and stand firm on that, because you're paying them a hefty dollar. For example, if you're giving them 3% and you sell your home, or you buy a home for $400,000, they're getting $12,000 off of that deal. So you're compensating them very handsomely. And so, like I said, make sure that you are actually taking the time to do your legwork on your realtor, making sure that you understand the different types of loan. You have what's called a conventional loan, and that is for those hefty, solid credit scorers who have 20% to put down on a home. And by you doing that, you actually are going to eliminate a lot of different fees that are going to be associated with your mortgage, such as the private mortgage insurance, which we did not talk about on day 1, 2, or 3. And so now the Holy Spirit's leading me to talk about that. So the private mortgage insurance is a safe haven, but many people are misinterpreted as to what private mortgage insurance is. Private mortgage insurance is not for the consumer. I'm going to say that again. The private mortgage insurance is not for the consumer. The private mortgage insurance is actually in place for if you default as the consumer for the bank to have a safe haven. It's the insurance that they take out against the policy of lending you the money. Okay. And because you don't have, if you do 20%, they see you as less a risk. So you don't have that PMI. But if you go with the FHA loan, which is a first time home buyer's loan, and no, this does not have to be your first time buying, it just has to be a certain period in between purchasing one FHA home and another FHO loan. And then you can have two FHAs if you have two properties that are, I think it's within 100 miles radius of one another. So that's another point that you want to, be mindful of when you're choosing the type of loan. You also have VA loans, but you have to be a veteran in order for you to get those. And those loans have 100% loans, but I wouldn't ever advise you to do that unless it's absolutely necessary. You always want to put something down because you don't ever want to have we'll just say a liability for this extended period of time. And so make sure that you are understanding the different types of loans. If you're not understanding the different types of loan, talk to the lenders. But do your homework, because remember that lender gets a commission. They get a fee. Their salary is to close the deal. Their salary is based off of how well they close the deal. They're not worried about you as the consumer. So hi, Connor. Do you have any questions as it relates to home ownership, selling, buying, purchasing, home warranty, insurance, all of those different aspects? Because we are here today when we're talking about how you actually should be looking at things as it relates to these things in a kingdom sense versus what the world has lied and taught, which is why so many are actually just have been so disheartened and have gone through such trying experiences when it comes to this subject matter. Okay, well, cool. So we'll keep talking. All right. So making sure that you know what type of loan that you need first and foremost. So if you're going to be buying a pre-existing home, like I said, you're going to want to make sure that you have a budget for repairs. You're going to want to make sure that you have a budget for repairs, and the mortgage is going to align with the fees that you need to be able to compensate your realtor. We just talked about that a little bit. And so just be mindful of that. Okay. And so outside of that, you're going to want to consider things such as, if it's not a new home, if it's a pre-existing or a resale, you're going to want to make sure that you understand that you can't do anything as far as it goes with your land. Okay, cool. And so the foundation, you're going to want to make sure that you get that thoroughly inspected, because a lot of people are not aware of the fact that homeowners insurance does not cover foundation repairs. It does not cover foundation issues. It doesn't cover landscaping, or if you do have, say, a leak, a bursted pipe, your homeowner's insurance does not cover landscaping. It has to be something that is housed within your house. Okay. And then there are certain types of insurance, as your homeowner's insurance policies are stated, that will cover certain aspects such as wind and hail. That's not a standard policy. You actually have to house a second type of policy that's going to be separate from that. And so your wind and hail policy is going to cover, if there was a tornado and it ripped your roof off, your natural homeowner's insurance is not going to cover that. And this is something that many people do not know. And so outside of that, if you're in a zone that's going to be prone to water intrusion or flooding, that's a secondary type of policy that you need to carry on top of your standard policy. And so these are areas that a lot of people are not clear on, which is why I was led to come on and talk about these different aspects of home ownership, purchasing, and things like that. And so you want to make sure that you understand these things, because if you don't have it and then there's a tornado that comes through and you're like, oh, I have homeowners insurance, you should pay for that. No, it's clearly stated that they don't cover these things. So you have to have wind and hail protection and that additive as far as your coverage goes. And so when you look at those aspects, you're going to want to consider that your foundation's not going to be covered. Your plumbing will be covered if it's a catastrophic event and you can prove that with a pre-existing there was no underlying plumbing issues with it. This is why it's imperative for you when you're going through your inspection phase to make sure that you are meticulously, with a fine comb, toothing through everything, every corner, every door, every window, every cabinet, every drawer, all of it. You're checking the face plates of the sockets and outlets. You're checking the fixtures to see if they're loose, because if you end up selling or purchasing the pre-existing home and it has any of those problematic areas, you're not responsible for it. Whereas before, if you had caught it during the inspection phase, you now have the ability to negotiate the price point or to incorporate the repair fees for it. So that's like a big difference in, you knowing the difference of what you can do and what you can't. And so the next component is you're going to want to make sure that you're looking at your roof. Your roof, because if anything were to go wrong with your roof, if you don't have warranty and you don't have, depending on how the roof may be damaged, you may have to come out of pocket. And roofs are not cheap, guys. $13,000 is typically that's standard. That's like a basic roof. And so depending on your square footage and, how it's shaped and things like that and what materials you use, a roof can run anywhere from 10 grand and up. So you always want to make sure that you have done the due diligence and inspected that roof really well. Now, there are policies that you can house that will give minor repair allotments for that. And that's what you're going to want to have in your home warranty. Home warranty is not the same as your homeowner's insurance. And no, they do not go together. So with your home warranty, it's going to be your safe haven as a backup. It's that better safe than sorry. So if you have high rain, so if you have a issue with, let's just say we'll just say you have a leak from your shower. All of a sudden you need a plumber to come out. Instead of you paying by the hour, you now have a contracted rate, a fee for service, which I'll just use mine for example, is $100. I pay $100 whether or not I need an electrician, whether or not I need a roof repair, or I need something done with an appliance that is covered by my warranty. All of these aspects are going to only have a set fee. This is how you save money. This is how you allow your money to stay in your pocket, by being wise and being prepared. This is what it means in Proverbs 31 when it says she considered it and then she purchased it. So consider all of these things, that one day something will go wrong and you will need to be covered for it. And so your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover just that leak. It will only cover the plumbing issue if it is something that is going to, like you have some damage. So say your ceiling falls out, then now they will bring in a mitigation company and they'll dry those things out. And then after that, then they will, they'll prove how much it is to rebuild. They'll come out and do it. You file a claim. They'll come out. They'll assess how everything is supposed to be put back together to its functionality before the damage. And then they'll pay the contractors for them to complete the work. And so with that is what you want to make sure. Better safe than sorry. So make sure you're doing your due diligence, making sure that you have these things in place when you're purchasing, especially with pre-existing or a resale. Now, when you have a newer home, it's the same thing, because a lot of times, let's just be honest, these contractors are throwing these houses up like in less than a year, less than 6 months, some of them. And so they're doing, some of them, I'm not saying all, but some of them they're cutting corners. And that means that when you get in there, it's not going to look like anything's wrong with the house. But 2 years or the first winter comes through and now you're noticing like you have condensation on a window or things like that. You're going to want to make sure you have a budget for that. And so your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover that, and neither will your warranty. So be mindful of that. Your windows are not covered. Your flooring is not covered unless there's some type of damage done to those areas through plumbing or electrical or a house fire or things like that. And some policies, depending on the agency, may require you to utilize a fire policy as well. It's no different from like that land that will require you to have flood insurance if you're near a creek, or if you tend to get water, or if your land has been surveyed and now you have live springs and the insurance company finds out about it. You should have those things put in place. But no, they're not going to pay for you to have a French drain installed because you have water intrusion every spring when the rain comes. So make sure you understand that. This is why you do your due diligence during that inspection period. I advise you guys to go and get a parcel of your land, do a land survey, and go and visit that area. See if it's marshy. See if it's super dry. See if there's any sign of erosion. See if there are tree roots growing. Because if those tree roots are busting through things, plumbing, you don't realize that these cute little shrubs and boxwoods that are on the outside of these new properties, dig them up. I'm gonna tell you, dig them up. And the reason that you want to dig them up is because as those things expand, they can grow into plumbing, into pipes, and a lot of warranties will not cover these types of things. And so, okay, thank you, Rain. I'll see you next time. And so you want to make sure that you are aware of these types of things. They're not talked about. They're not going to tell you this, but your agents are going to tell you certain things. But this is why you want to have that coverage. When you're selecting an agent, interview them. It's just like this is a business transaction at the end of the day. So you want to make sure that you're interviewing these people and making sure that they have your best intention at heart and things like that. And so the next component is your electrical. Your electrical is not going to be covered. Your electrical is not covered by your homeowner's insurance. So this is something that you will have to deal with unless there's some type of electrical fire. And so what that means is warranty can come in and kick in, but if you don't have the home warranty and something electrical goes wrong and now you have to have your home rewired, that can be extensive, guys. That could be anywhere from like 15 to 20 grand north. So you want to make sure that you're considering these things with a pre-existing or a resale. So do your due diligence. Like I said, go in and inspect that property, check the neighbors, chat with the neighbors to see what type of homes have been built. Especially if you're going into an older community, they're typically built by the same builder. And if they're built by the same builder, they tend to have the same problematic issues. So for example, if there tends to be something off with the doors, it may have been like a leveler was off or something like that with the contractor that did the windows. But you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence during the inspection period. You're going and you're talking with the neighbors, you're canvassing the land, going to see, okay, on a sunny day, what does the land look like? On a wet day, what does it look like? Is the runoff towards the house? Is the runoff away from the house? Is the runoff causing the erosion beside the driveway? Things like that. You want to look at, hey, Rain, welcome back. And so, so make sure you actually are doing that. And so, another component to consider is, like I said, the affordability of it. You don't ever want to go into the lending process with the idea that you can afford more than you actually can. So when you're doing your pre-qualification, when you're doing your final qualification, you want to make sure that you're utilizing your net income versus your gross. And this is why. Because if you are getting a home based off of $100,000 and you only bring in $75,000 after taxes and everything else come out, that's $25,000 that you're saying you have, but you don't have. So don't ever set yourself up for failure. You also want to make sure that you are weighing out your pros and your cons. So with your new home, what did you like about it? With your old home, what do you look liking about it? Are you being reduced? Are you are you being free? Are you being reduced? Are you being compartmentalized? Because with the HOA, which is something most people don't consider, if you do not have a budget set aside to afford your HOAs, this means you're going to have an escrow account attached to your mortgage account. And if you're buying into a new community, your HOA fees could fluctuate. So if you're buying mid-phase and then all the houses that are after you are increased in value, your property value is going to go up. So this means you can start off with 1,000, and then after everything sells in your community, now your HOA is now 4,000. So now you're going to have to divide 4,000 by 12 and add that to your mortgage. That could run, with an increase of $200 to $300, just roughly speaking. So you don't ever want to set yourself up for that type of deficit, or just going into it with some type of disaster waiting to happen. Next, you're going to want to make sure that you are examining how you feel when you're in your space, because spiritually speaking, you have different spiritual insights and abilities to determine whether or not something is good or not. That's called that gut feeling, guys. That's your spiritual insight. If you are anxious there, if you don't feel at peace there, don't settle, guys, because this is a business transaction. It's an investment. You wouldn't ever want to take everything that you've saved and pour it into a space and not be happy with it, because there are guidelines, guys. It's rules and regulations when you're purchasing, just like it's rules and regulations when you're selling. So when you purchase, you do have to stay on that site with certain types of loans for at least 2 years. If you don't, you still have the ability to sell, but you have to pay 20% of taxes on top of the net proceeds of the sale price. So that could be a chunk of change that you don't have and you don't realize how detrimental it's going to be until the transaction is done. And now you're like, whoa, we thought we were going to walk away with 80,000 and we only have 30, but now we're supposed to be purchasing a new home and we don't have enough. So now you don't have anywhere to live because you did not, you did not understand that component and you did not make that application. So don't ever set yourself up for failure. Go with your instincts. If you are in an area and you see that you're anxious about it, make sure that you just walk away. Better safe than sorry. You can always customize and have some things added into a place that you like, but you can't get out of something after you've already been in it and it's already established. And then you're going to want to ask yourself too, would it honor our Heavenly Father? Because like I said, at the end of the day, everything that you do should be glorifying and honoring Him. Your heart posture, all of these different aspects. So what does this home look like? How would it honor Him? How would it glorify Him? So you're taking these aspects into consideration. And then with a new bill, this is a bonus, guys. With a new bill, you have the ability to ask them for an itemized comp sheet. Okay? Itemized comp sheet. And what I mean by that is you're going to ask them for a list of materials that they used on your home and the prices that they paid for it. So if they say that they're giving you certain things and they say that it costs this and this is why, this is a standard, this is an upgrade, you want to see that in writing. You want to see what they actually spent on it versus how they're making the application and their list price. Because a lot of times people don't realize that this commission is $200,000 and $300,000. That's a room for negotiation. So while they may not come down the entire $300,000 or $200,000, however much they tack on, you actually can negotiate it down, significantly down. And so when you're looking at that, do that. And then you're going to also want to look at houses in the area that have the same style build, the same materials that are used, and see what those price points are. It's your due diligence to go out and to shop around. So you can very well use one builder against another to get them to negotiate down the price point and then come out ahead and to your vantage point. So don't settle. Do your investigation, go compare properties, and then examine the incentives. As it relates to the builders too, because this could very well be increased. You may have a property that has 9 out of 10 things on your list, but then the other one has 10 out of 10, and that 9 out of 10 is a price point issue. So you can use the one that has, the 10 out of 10, but it's too high, and say, hey, well, they are giving the incentives for this, so can you match that, or can you do better? And now you're out at a vantage point. Okay. Then you're going to want to make sure that you are actually looking at the location. What does this location have that you're drawn to? Is it compatible with your heavenly assignments? Or is it going to take you closer to our Heavenly Father? Or is it going to stretch you thin and pull you away from Him? Always want to just keep that at the forefront. Is it evident that His presence rests there? Is it sin-ridden? Is it a poverty-ridden place? What opportunities do you have? What opportunities are visible? Is it growing? Is it stagnant? Are you going to be able to expand? Are you going to be able to utilize your gifts and your talents? But you're going to want to make sure you're doing those things. So those are things that you want to consider when you are actually purchasing a home. And I have several different verses that I have for you guys. The first being Proverbs 24:3. And I always ask you guys to get your scriptures and go there with me. And so please do that. Grab your verses, and we're going to go to Proverbs 24 verse 3 as it relates to home ownership and you actually doing what you need to do. You know what? We're actually going to go to Luke 6 first. Let's go to Luke 6 verse 48 because I'm already there. I ended up having to record this message earlier. All right. And it reads, "He is like a man which built a house and digged deep and laid the foundation on a rock. And when the flood arose, the stream beat vehemently upon that house and could not shake it, for it was founded upon a rock." So you're going to want to make sure that your house has a solid foundation, guys. If it doesn't have a solid foundation, we just talked about that. That is something that's not covered. And you don't ever want to be without coverage in this life, with your possessions, any of it. All right. And so now we can go to, we will go to Hebrews. Let's go to the book of Hebrews. And that is chapter 3, verse 4. And it reads, "For every house is builded by a man, but he that built all things is God." So we know that our Heavenly Father gives us the ability and the know-how to be able to construct things, create things. But at the same time, He's the one that's still over all of it. So it's not anything that He's not going to know. So this is why you have to seek heavenly wisdom, heavenly insight, heavenly understanding and knowledge in order for you to be best prepared as you consider purchasing a home or selling a home. And so that's, I mean, it's important. You just have to keep it at the forefront. So now we're going to go to Proverbs. We will go to the book of Proverbs, verse 24, well, chapter 24, and we're going to the third verse. And it reads, guys, through wisdom is a house built, and by understanding is it established. So you know that if you're building it through the wisdom that you're having and the knowledge and understanding, you're going to cover all of these areas: your home warranty, your homeowner's insurance. You're going to be doing the different things and aspects that it takes to contribute to you making sure you have what you need and what's necessary. You're considering these things, like the Proverbs 31 woman. She considered the field and then she bought it. She didn't just go and say, I like it, so I'm going to get it. No, she surveyed the land. She saw if it was going to be fruitful. She saw that it was going to be abundant. She saw that she could be prosperous there. She prayed on it, and then she considered her resources, and then she went and bought it. She didn't say, oh, I can't afford it, but I'm going to go over here and just waste all of my talents on it and then not have anything to be able to propel myself forward in it. No, she came ready and prepared. So make sure that you understand that. So that's how you get your home established. Next, we're going to go to 1 Corinthians 3:10. 1 Corinthians 3:10. And it reads, according to the grace of God, which is given unto me as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, and another buildeth thereon. But let every man take heed for how he buildeth thereupon. Okay? For other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Jesus Christ. All right? So you want to make sure that you understand how well your foundation is supposed to be. He doesn't want you to go into these different transactions not knowing. That is not ever what he wants for you. He always wants what's best for us. And so it's up to us to take that opportunity to study, to seek, to grow, to understand, to gain the insight, the wisdom, and understanding before we make these big life changing and altering, and we're just going to say rewarding, and they should be joyful because you're purchasing something, but you have to understand that until you own it, it's a liability. Most people don't realize that when you purchase a home and you have a mortgage and you didn't buy it with cash, you don't own it. So that means it is not an asset. It is a liability. And so you want to make sure that you understand these things. So those are the things that, like I said, you should be considering. Now we're going to touch on several prayer points that you guys should be utilizing as you are preparing to sell your home. All right. So the first one is, like I said, your agent. Make sure you're praying for your agent, because that is your representative, that is your advocate, that is the person that is going to be communicating on your behalf for all of the things that you would like to see achieved and attained as the seller of your home. And so after you pray for that agent and you get a great agent, you're praying for the right buyer. That's right, you're praying for your buyer. And the reason you want to pray for your buyer is because you don't ever want to get to the closing table or get midway through and then they pull out. You don't want someone that is not about their business. You don't want somebody that's indecisive. You don't want somebody that's kind of on the fence. You want someone that sees your home, as their future home. They see this, they desire it, they've prayed about it, and this is right for them. You don't ever want to pass something on with the deceptive practices, with manipulative practices. So if you have things that are needing to be done within your home before you sell it, be honest about it. I'm not saying that you just have to peel back layers, but at the same time, you know what's wrong with your home. You wouldn't ever want to be deceptive to some people. And just a live testament of my experience, there were some deceptive things that were wrong with our homes, just covered up, just minor things. But at the same time, had they been honest, we would have known that we needed repairs. And so we wouldn't have had to go through the legal aspect of things. And it just could have saved so much time, effort, and energy. But because of their dishonesty, we had to suffer. And so be mindful that your decisions and your choices follow over into other people's lives, not just yours. It affects other people. And so the next thing you're going to want to pray for is no hindrances during the selling phase. During the selling phase, you're going to want to make sure you examine your paperwork, which means combing through meticulously again with a fine-tooth comb every aspect of your paperwork. We just had this happen. One of our lenders sold our mortgage to another company. And so they ended up selling it, but it was an inaccurate balance that was reported. So that meant we had to draw an affidavit. We had to have an affidavit. And this took months, guys. And in taking months, it ended up causing us to lose a buyer. And so you make sure that your paperwork aligns. Make sure that you have everything in order before you actually list your home for selling. Make sure that you have an idea as to what type of time frame you want for your closing. Do you want it to be 30 days? Do you want it to be 60 days? Do you want it to be 90 days? Allow yourself enough time to transition out and into your place, or out, but with enough time to prepare to move and do what you need to do. If one home is if the selling of your home is contingent upon where you're going, your hands are kind of tied, but at the same time, you still are praying for this process as well. So closing dates and transitions. Next, you're going to pray for the appraisals and the inspections. So after you've prayed for the right buyer, you've received the offer, and now you're in that inspection and appraisal phase, you're going to pray for that appraiser to price your price point at the valuation that you say, because they're going to come in here and comb it to try to see if there's anything that could hinder you from listing at the price point that you're listed at. They're going to look for things that, you know, could indicate any type of plumbing, electrical, roofing, or foundational issues within your home. That's what inspectors do. And so because of that, you're going to want to make sure that you are making sure that you're praying for that coverage for yourself. And you want to pray for any repairs that you know need to be done, for them to be in a timely manner, to be completed. You want them completed in a timely manner, because you don't ever want something to go over or carry over past or extend past that closing date. There are fees that are associated. So the prorated fees and things like that are going to be tacked on the further and further you go past that agreed upon and contractual closing date. Next, you want to pray for the closing costs and the fees. Just like we talked about, your agent needs to be the right agent. You need to agree upon a set fee. That fee is going to be a percentage of what your property sells for. So you're praying for the fees to be conducive with whatever net proceeds you need to be able to transition out of the space, as well as any closing costs. And that typically is going to be lesser than what the buyer's closing costs are going to be. But you will still have the attorney fee, which is the fee that's going to be associated with the attorney that's housing your closing, and in turn, cutting the check for everybody that's owed. And then an additional fee to consider is if you have not paid your property taxes like you should, or you have outstanding debt or liens, constructural liens on your property, these will have to be satisfied. This is what's called a clause due, a demand due on demand. Okay, so that means once your property sells, it is demanded that they are due. Okay, you will not get a check until all of those fees are paid. So be mindful of that. This is your lesson. You're getting this information. And then you're praying for your agent's pure intentions throughout the entire process, not just for them to come and collect commissions, but for them to actually be doing what they say they're doing and to operate from an honest place with an integral heart. All right. So make sure that you're praying for your agent throughout the process and that nothing's being fishy behind the scenes that you can't see. Then you're praying for timely confirmations, guys. Confirmations throughout the same process, so that you are able to identify all of the aspects that may not be aligned, that need to be aligned before you go to the closing table. Okay? Pray for your new home. That's the next step. So now that all of these things are here, you're almost at your closing. Pray for your new home, guys. It's time for you to start covering your new home, because this is your place of dwelling, your next place of dwelling. Pray for the fruits of the Spirit to be there. Pray for our Heavenly Father's presence to rest heavily there. Pray for your heavenly assignments. All of these different things as it relates to your new home. Pray for a smooth transition, because you wouldn't ever want anything to hinder you being out of one home and not being able to go into another one. You have to have a place to stay. So you don't want to be homeless. You make sure that you're praying for a smooth transition and that nothing falls through the cracks. So pray for those spiritual attacks in that aspect. Next, you're praying for your abundance, guys. You want your new space to be an abundant place of residence. You want it to prosper. Abundance and prosperity, those kind of go hand in hand, but those are two different points that you're praying. But at the same time, you want to pray for abundance and prosperity. You're praying for those things, and you're going to want to make sure that you understand what it means for your land and your home to be prosperous and abundant. Your your spiritual assignments should have clarity. You're praying for that as well. Pray for the assignment clarity attached to the new chapter in your new home. So all of these different aspects are prayer points that you should be considering when it relates to selling your home and purchasing a new one, if you're having to purchase or if you're just transitioning to a rental space. And so those are just some of the areas, guys, that stood out to me and why I actually decided to hop on and do these lessons. And so I have been doing them all week, and this is actually day 4. I may come on tomorrow. We'll see what the Holy Spirit leads. And outside of that, just remember these things. And then the last component I want to touch on is with a resale. If you're viewing a showing of a pre-existing home, if there are indicators of projects and the seller has not concealed it, don't show up with the intention to sell them short or try to lowball. It's, consider these things, and that it will be a negative impact on your character. And you don't ever want your character to be impacted negatively. So consider that. And consider that it's not a new home, guys. You're not going into a new build. So it's not going to look like it's new. You knew that. You were drawn to it. Something attracted you to it in the first place. So be mindful of that. Even if you have a change of heart after you get there, just keep it cordial. Give positive feedback, but don't be condescending in tone. Don't make it personal, because you got to remember that everyone maintains a home differently. Everybody's aspects of what a home should look like and their decor is different. And so, what someone may think is cute with wallpaper galore may not be cute to someone that doesn't like wallpaper. But that's a cosmetic thing. You can go and change these things about a home. It's cosmetic things. So don't be condescending when you go to see a pre-existing home. Keep it classy. Give your positive feedback. Let them know you're no longer interested, or let them know what your drawbacks were. It may be something that's negotiable if they're a motivated seller. Then you're also going to remember that, the flooring and things like that, you can ask for what's called an incentive. We talked about this a little bit. You can ask for what's called an incentive, but it should not be a deal breaker as to, flooring or a roof or painting, things like that. You don't have to. That's not a deal breaker. You can go fix a step. You can go grab some paint. You can switch out a door if it's not an HOA, because we just talked about that. But just make sure that you remember these things. And so as you prepare to transition into your new space or out of your old space into, just your temporary space, make sure that you're covering yourself with prayer. And as always, guys, I pray nothing but the best of success in all things heavenly concerning you guys, and that you are doing your work. You're putting in the work to understand, to gain the wisdom, the knowledge, and understanding that's needed for you to be successful in your transaction of purchasing or selling your home. There are many things that, like I said, we've shared in this particular segment on day 4 of this particular subject matter that a lot of people don't know. So go get your warranties. Go make sure you shop around for your homeowner's insurance. Make sure that you're getting several different quotes, because with you getting several different quotes, it allows you to examine the different coverages based off of the entity that's providing them. Make sure you're doing that parcel research as well. Survey that land. I have a story with my neighbor. She discovered we bought around the same time, and she ended up purchasing her property and learning after winter hit and it started raining and there was black ice in her driveway. Where's this water coming from? She learned she had live springs in her backyard, guys. So do your land surveys. Go inspect that land. Go put your feet on it. Watch it during the wet seasons. Watch it during the dry seasons. But go and see. And then you also can go back and, like I said, examine those claims when you're doing the insurance quotes. Ask the insurance agents to run a report to see if there have ever been any claims. And if there have been claims, what types of claims there have been on that pre-existing home. Because if you see 3 different owners, but they all have plumbing claims, there's probably something with the building of that home or foundation issues that have caused different type of plumbing issues, which only get more expensive as time goes on. So you want to look for things like that, red flags like that, bring it to the attention, and just save yourself the harm of buying a money pit. And so if you guys don't have any other questions as it relates to purchasing or buying a home, what aspects you should look at, how to be pre-qualified, what you should be using the different things that you need to bring to the table, then I am going to go ahead and wrap up and let you guys enjoy the rest of your night. So I will give you guys a couple of minutes. And I do want to thank you guys for coming on and actually taking the time to sit with me on this message as I am sharing this tidbit of knowledge with you guys. All right. All right, guys. So I will look forward to you guys in the next message. Thank you guys for taking the time to come. Thank you for the subscribers. Thank you for all of the people who have taken time to sit on this platform with me and to allow me to pour into you that which is poured into me. I am grateful for you, and I pray that you have nothing but the best of success in all that you do, and that heavenly influx of all things in every area of your life comes to you. All right, guys. Take care and have a good night.